Alright, this thing look weird. Welcome to Satisfactory Blueprint Only Challenge. Challenge where I use only blueprint factories to beat Satisfactory. And I have decided to extend this to my power production. While making something like a modular coal power is very easy, fuel setups can be done in numerous ways. And today, I will share and show two different fuel setups. Both are stackable one-click blueprints, where you input raw resources on the one side and get power on the other side. This includes refineries, fuel generators, constructors, packagers, and even backup batteries in one single blueprint. First blueprint is designed around simpler recipes, and it can convert 300 oil into 2.85 gigawatts of power. Second blueprint is using the most advanced normal fuel setup by adding just some water, and this advanced setup is only 25% less power than the most efficient turbo fuel setups in the late game. It is 300 oil converted into 9 gigawatts of power. Yep,
it's over 9,000
megawatts of power, and all this with mid-game tier 5 technology and recipes. I remember spending days to set up my fuel generators in update 5, and with these blueprints, I just made it in 2 hours. This is so ridiculous. Blueprints are OP in Satisfactory, and while I was creating those elaborate fuel setups, I have made a satellite blueprint for production of packaged fuel and canisters. That satellite blueprint, producing 80 packaged fuel per minute, can replace one of generator stacks and can cover all your personal needs for the jetpack and even can cover your truck setups. Aside providing blueprints itself, I will showcase blueprint setups, and I will provide production schematics and discuss alternative recipes. So even if these blueprints are not your jam, you can still apply knowledge of this video to your own personal power setups in Satisfactory. So without further ado, let's talk about invading oil in Satisfactory. First, we need to establish several underlying principles for the blueprint design. I do not really use Mark II pipes. And Mark I pipes, they have a big benefit in functionality and ease of use. 250% water pump can fit exactly one full Mark pipe of water. While overclocking water pumps is not the universal necessity, it is the most expected thing to do in the middle of the map. And if you are talking about oil, well, overclocked normal and impure nodes work like a charm with Mark I pipes. Normal oil node produce exactly 300 oil, and 2 impure nodes can be combined yet again into 300 units of oil. So this is why my blueprint stacks are designed around full Mark I pipes, either it's water or oil. It is just easier to handle. Second limiting factor would be the fuel generators. Without overclocking the fuel generators, making blueprint setup is still possible, but it will increase amount of satellite machinery 2 or even 3 times. So it will be either 200% or 250% for the fuel generators. Alternative way of doing this is to put fuel generators outside of your blueprints, then you kinda can get away without overclocking them, but then it would be not a blueprint only challenge. So for the 200% fuel generator we will need 24 units of fuel, and for the 250% we will need 30 units of fuel per minute. So the baby setup would be take like 45 oil and convert it into one single refinery and have one overclocked fuel generator in the blueprint. Absolutely inefficient, but rather simple. 4x4 blueprint layout allow to place 2 refineries together with one single fuel generator. And we are still not using the full verticality in our blueprint, but more about that later. With 2 refineries, we can play around with alternative recipes. With heavy oil residue alternative recipe, combined with standard residual fuel recipe, we can increase efficiency of our power generation 40%. But this is a limiting factor for the fuel generator overclock. We cannot really go for the full 250% since it requires overclock of heavy oil residue refinery. And my philosophy for the blueprints tends to be something like, well, only overclock when you cannot do otherwise. Also, reasonable underclocking is always beneficial thanks to the relative decrease in power consumption. But underclocking introduces more machines and that can lead to lesser FPS. So both are not really great in mass. In the case of power production and in specific of satellite machinery, if your power production chain or satellite machinery is a bit underclocked, this will result in bigger net power production. This is not a factory, this is a power production chain for your factories, so producing more power from the same amount of resources and input energy is a win-win. If the first schematic was a baby setup, this is like an amateurish setup. While not really like super efficient, it have a huge benefit. It is simple and very fast to make. Get 300 oil into the pipe, place first blueprint, start power production, place awesome sink for the byproduct resin disposal, slowly stack blueprints until you have 11, and here you go, you have converted 300 oil into 2.85 gigawatts of power. But we can do more than simply converting our oil. We have all this free space above the resin and oil manifolds in the blueprint, and we can totally fit 3 or even 4 batteries. Also, the trick here is to have batteries on the separate power chain. This way you can wall off your batteries as an emergency backup behind the power switch. Also, I like to run like those power lines with update 8 towers. I usually run 2, one for the power from the power plant and another for the backup, and this way I can control everything from my central control room on my like central factory. And with all that done, I had like this exterior that was looking like a pair of eyes. Also, I made like the side window on the side and it looked like an ear. Then I added like decoration in center and that started looking like a nose. So I added a smile and laser eyes. And by the way, laser eyes is like overclock LCD screens. So you can go to the settings of LCD screen and you are not using the slider. You just crank up number above 1 and this way you can increase the amount of light that LCD screen produce way above the slider. And when I was like finishing the exterior, I was like, well, I want one more thing for my power plant, and this eventually led up to a very super efficient power setup that I was not actually planning to make in the first, but well, I kind of made it. America! Alrighty, I am producing fuel and I am producing byproduct resin. What about just taking this resin and converting it into the canisters full of fuel? Then I can just cover my needs for the jetpack and can run truck setups from the packaged fuel. The idea here is to remove one power blueprint and replace it with the packaged fuel production in another single blueprint. 10 power generator blueprints consume 270 oil, so we will have 30 fuel to work with. So here what we can do. When you look at these schematics, that definitely looks like a lot of refineries. And we can only fit like 3 refineries into a single blueprint. So what we can do? Well, if we look closely, we can see that we really need only 250% on the residual plastic. And everything else is just slight overclock. Thanks to addition of water and diluted fuel recipe, 30 oil can be converted into the whopping 80 packaged fuel. It is 80 units of fuel. Just remember this number for now. Turns out that you can totally place constructors above refiners and even can totally place packagers as the second level above refineries. Then I like treat this factory as personal storage with the ability to connect fuel to a truck station, so this will need both storage container and overflow valve on the smart splitters. Setting up the smart splitter is pretty simple, just make sure that you have general output into the storage container and then you have overflow output into actual output of your factory. Once the storage container is full of packaged fuel, it will just overflow into output thanks to the smart splitter. Before that, everything is going to the storage container. With canister though, it's a bit tricky. Canisters are being consumed by a water packager for the fuel production. And even with slight overproduction of canisters, you still need to run smart splitter overflow valve before the water packager. And then the second overflow valve will be needed for the storage container and output. So it is a total of 2 smart splitters that will ensure that first, your water packager get enough canisters, then it overflows into your storage container, and second smart splitter is making sure that, well, first you are filling up this container and only then you are splitting your overflow canisters from the container out from the blueprint. And by the way, these canisters are really important for the next blueprint, and I'm not talking like a comrade, come on dude. So this blueprint was very important stepping stone, and I thought that placing packager above refinery is pretty much impossible. But this is actually possible, it's simple and very easy and opens up a huge possibility in the blueprint design. In my first generator blueprint, I used all the space horizontally and some space vertically with the batteries. But I never used all the vertical space available, so time to change that. If we introduce water into our setup, we can bump up efficiency of power generation more than 200%. This is 2 with double zeros, not 20, not 30, not 25 or 40. No, it's 200%. By simply introducing 2 packages, packing water and unpacking fuel in a canister loop, we can pull off this incredible gain in power. And this is mid-game power setup. There is no blenders involved. It is just two packagers, canisters in the loop, water, and diluted packaged fuel alternative recipe. This gets even more ridiculous when you compare this with turbo fuel setups that only gets you like extra 25% power from this point where you already have this like diluted fuel setup, and it will require to have like extra two blenders and consume sulfur or maybe coal, well, depends on the setup. Yeah, turbo fuel is kinda bad, it requires more extra logistics, and also you cannot fit like two blenders with two refineries and fuel generator into the 4x4, so it will not fit the blueprint. Probably this is once again the reason why I'm just skipping turbo fuel straight into the nuclear power. I really doesn't like the turbo fuel because it's require all these extra bells and whistles and you get pretty much nothing from it, and at this point you already kinda can do the nuclear power. So yeah, turbo fuel, nah. So, what is the setup for this normal fuel super duper pro setup? First, you will need to get 300 water per 10 stacks of this blueprint. Then you will need to input stack of canisters into the container on the top of the blueprint. This is a closed loop, so manifolds, well, I kinda try to make them, but they do not really work and will clog up the system. Stack of canisters is kinda overkill, but I am just too lazy to input less than one stack, then you'll need to make like all those extra clicks. Why? Just put a stack. And we are covered with the canister production thanks to previous blueprint. And then we have oil. Super efficiency have a downside. Yeah, being great at a game have its own challenge. Even at 250%, we still need 26 generators to burn through 300 oil in a single pipe. Yes, we need 26 blueprints. While my first fuel blueprint was this weird creation that I can stack just 11 times, for such a big setup, I just want to make a vertical stack, or at least like 2 levels. And running several pumps in such a scale is not an issue. 26 is a slightly odd number, and I just decided to make 2 levels with 10 stacks, so here we go, 20 stacks, and then just stack 6 blueprints into a separate building. Also, I have this typical like brutalist concrete crown on my building, and it is just simple decorative blueprint that I will include in my blueprint pack. Just as previously, oil and water is in aligned manifold, same for the byproduct resin belt. Connect power lines, connect the pipes, connect the belts, and just don't forget to sync byproduct resin or fuel production will clog. Also, water packager is situated on top of the blueprint, and unless you already have water tower pressure, make sure to use fluid pump. Blueprint do not have internal pump, so make sure that you have pump before you input your water. And do not cross power circuits or you will lose ability to separate your backup batteries from your main power grid. As you can guess from my footage, I have chosen Canyon for my power generation setup. Probably not the best place, because well, you have not a lot of water around, but whatever, I just done it. So far I have 2 normal line plus, well, packaged fuel blueprint, and I have 1 line with advanced fuel production. It is 900 oil into 14.5 gigawatts of power, and I can easily bump up this production to 27 gigawatts of power when I would be in the mood to bring more water. Packaged fuel blueprint can totally work with advanced fuel setup. Just remember that it will cost you 3 advanced fuel blueprints worth of oil. Links to blueprints are in the pinned comment down below, and if there is no pinned comment, well, let me know, because YouTube love to actually nuke the links, both with the videos and the pinned comments. So yeah, sometimes it happens, just post anything, the comment that hey, there is no pinned comment there. With my blueprints, everything in game is labeled to best of my ability, and if you never exported blueprints, you will need to do this manually. You will need to go to your system disk, user, your username, app data, local, factory game, saved, save games, blueprints. There your session would create a folder once you have blueprints unlocked in your progression and created first blueprint in the game. Every blueprint consists from 2 parts, .sbp file with parts and items, and .sbp cfg file with text description and color settings. Quick note, my blueprints are done in update 8 experimental, and they will crash on all the versions of Satisfactory. I hope it will be fixed soon, but for now we are limited to use only in the latest version. Next time around I will cover my computer factory. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, have a nice one, and Yakez out!